Hey, if you're part of a K-12 tech team, you already know you're on the front lines of a pretty unique cyber battlefield. So today, we're going to dive deep into hardening our most critical assets. Yeah, I'm talking about the servers and PCs that are the absolute backbone of our school's infrastructure.
You've probably heard this phrase before, and man, does it hit the nail on the head. Our schools are just overflowing with sensitive data. Student records, staff PII, financial info, you name it. That makes us an incredibly juicy target. And yet, we're often working with tight budgets and limited resources, which, makes building out a full-blown security program a huge challenge.
And if you thought that was just a saying, take a look at this. This isn't some potential threat that might happen down the road. We're talking, on average, more than one cyber incident every single school day. Think about that. This isn't a fire drill, people. The threat is constant and it is real, which makes our need for a smart, strategic defense absolutely non-negotiable.
So what's our goal here? Let's be honest, perfect prevention is a fantasy. It's just not realistic. So our strategic focus has to be on operational resilience. What does that mean? It means we need to be awesome at detecting threats, responding lightning fast, and recovering effectively, all to keep our schools up and running no matter what gets thrown at us.
Now, to do that, we need a playbook, right? A blueprint. We're going to use the NIST Cybersecurity Framework as our guide. It's this really solid, structured way to manage risk. It's built around 5 main ideas or functions. And for this session, we are zeroing in on one of the most important ones, the protect function.
So, where do we even begin? Well, protection starts with the foundation. The single most critical first step is making sure every system is built securely from the moment you take it out of the box. This is all about hardening our servers and PCs to shrink their attack surface from day one.
Okay, so here's a super practical 5-point checklist for server hardening. We're talking about the absolute essentials here. Things like turning off services you don't need, that shrinks the target for attackers. Enforcing MFA on admin accounts, that protects the keys to the kingdom. And segmenting your network, making sure management can only happen from specific IT zones. That contains a breach if it happens. Seriously, this isn't a suggestion list. It's the mandatory starting line for every single server you roll out.
All right, our foundation is solid. Now it's time to build the walls and post the guards. We're shifting from that initial static setup to the active defenses we need to protect it. This is all about controlling who gets in and how we spot the bad guys who are trying to break down the door.
The whole philosophy here is something called the principle of least privilege, or PULP. It's a simple idea, but it's incredibly powerful. It just means that any given user account should only have the absolute bare minimum permissions it needs to do its job, nothing more. By sticking to PULP, we seriously limit the damage an attacker can do if they manage to snatch a user's credentials.
So, what does that actually look like in our schools? Well, the rules are pretty clear. Standard users, and that means students and most of your staff, should never, ever have local admin rights on their computers. Period. All the heavy lifting, the administrative work, has to be done using separate, dedicated admin accounts. It's all about building walls and keeping things contained.
Now listen up. If you walk away with only one thing from this section, please let it be this. Enforcing multi-factor authentication is the single most effective thing you can do. Stolen passwords are the #1 weapon for attackers, and MFA is the powerful shield that stops them cold.
Okay, so just like our approach to access control has to evolve, so does our malware protection. And here's the hard truth. That traditional antivirus you've probably been using for years, I hate to break it to you, but it's just not cutting it anymore against modern attacks.
This slide really shows the evolution we need to make. We've got to move from legacy antivirus, which is kind of like a security guard with a photo book of known criminals, to something called Endpoint Detection and Response, or EDR. EDR is more like a modern detective that analyzes behavior. It doesn't just look for known bad guys, it looks for suspicious activity. And that is way, way more effective against the advanced malware we're seeing today.
And to specifically go after the ransomware threat, we've got to get even more granular. This means using some high-impact tactics like application whitelisting on your critical servers, so only pre-approved programs can even run. It also means blocking dangerous file types from running out of user download folders, and this one's huge, locking down which computers can even talk to your file servers.
You know, building strong defenses is one thing. Making sure they don't get weak and crumbly over time, that's a whole other ballgame. This next part is all about the ongoing, disciplined work it takes to maintain the integrity of the systems we've worked so hard to secure.
So let's talk about patch management. I know, it can feel like a chore.
right? But it's an absolutely essential, systematic process. Unpatched vulnerabilities are the wide-open front door for most attackers. Good patch management is how we keep that door locked, bolted, and barricaded.
And doing it right isn't just about blasting out patches and hoping for the best. There's a life cycle, a process. You see it here in 4 clear steps. First, you figure out what actually needs patching and what's most important. Then, you test those patches on a small, safe group of systems. Only then, once you know they're safe, do you deploy them to everyone else. And finally, you circle back and verify that everything worked and is stable.
Okay, we've covered a ton of technical stuff: hardening, access control, patching. But now let's pull back and connect all of these procedures to why we're here in the first place, our fundamental mission.
Because at the end of the day, here's what it's all about. All this work we do, the hardening, the access controls, the late-night patching, it's not fundamentally about protecting computers. It's about protecting the educational environment itself. It's about making sure that no matter what happens, our students can keep learning.
So I'll leave you with this final question to really think about. Is our goal just to keep the servers online, or is it to build true mission resilience? Because when we start looking at our work through that lens, every single action we take, every patch we deploy, has a much deeper and more critical purpose. Thanks for your time.